Thanks, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I can't believe I'm following a presentation with actual data on it. Mine looks like it was done by a 5-year-old. But so purpose. Can you raise your hand if your company has one of these? Yeah? Okay, that's good. Can anyone remember what it is? Well, since no one's raising their hand, I'm just going to go ahead and assume that your company's purpose is so vague and obscure that not even its employees can remember it. Because here's the thing. If you scroll through any Fortune 500 website, you are certain to find some sort of mission statement, some sort of statement of purpose, right? And that usually consists of a couple of lines and a catchy slogan on the company's why, its reason for being. And it's usually so vague that it is not restrictive and so aspirational that it can't really be accounted for. But it didn't used to be like this, didn't it? I mean, it used to be that a company's purpose was to be profitable. That was the Milton Friedman way of capitalism, right? What economists call shareholder capitalism. In shareholder capitalism, a company's purpose was to deliver value to its shareholders, aka profit. But not anymore. Now companies want to inspire humanity or help humanity if they're slightly less ambitious, right? Or even elevate the world's consciousness. You remember that one, right? That was a moonshot. But why? Why are suddenly companies so interested in us, in humanity, and helping the planet? Is it all just PR fluff? Or is capitalism actually making a turn for good? Well, in some cases, I'm afraid the answer is it is PR fluff. Yeah, and pretty cringe one at that. But what about Salesforce and gay rights? What about Disney in Florida? What about Citi and Apple and Starbucks in Roe v. Wade? So if big multinational companies are suddenly walking the talk when it comes to big societal issues, then maybe it isn't just PR fluff after all. Maybe we're done with shareholder capitalism. Welcome to capitalism 2.0, or what economists call stakeholder capitalism, where a company's purpose is no longer to deliver value to its shareholders. It is to deliver value to its employees and its business partners and its suppliers, and yes, its consumers as well, and every community they touch, basically their whole ecosystem. So suddenly, profit is no longer the only P in town. Now you've got planet, now you've got people, and yes, now you've got purpose. But the thing is, no company is born with inherent values, right? No, what's happened is that companies have become really good at listening to the values of their workforce. And that's what happened with Salesforce and Disney and etc. Basically, their purpose has been adjusted to reflect the values of the people who work for them. And that's great. But what I'm here to ask you is this. Is mimicking the values of your workforce enough? Is it enough for a company to remain relevant? Let's look at Google for a second. Now, Google's purpose is to be helpful. And what are Google's products if not helpful, right? But what if I told you that even the most helpful plethora of products won't save Google from irrelevance, right? And what if I told you that, like Google, most companies are actually missing an important point when it comes to purpose? But let's stick with Google for a second. Since its inception, all of Google's marketing efforts have been put into product marketing, right? Into developing a plethora of really helpful products. So essentially, Google's purpose has served as an internal North Star to Google's engineers and product developers. It has helped Google create helpful products. It also provided Google with a very unique work culture. Google is known for being helpful to its employees, for allowing them to manage their own time, to be creative, to design their own career. And it's worked so well that Google has its own lingo and is known for, delicious free meals and university-like campuses. But all of that happens, all of that purpose takes place within Google's four walls. All the while, to the outside world, Google isn't really a brand, is it? It's a verb. Let me ask you something. When you think of Google, what is the first thing that comes into mind? Thank you, search. That's exactly it. And that's what most people say. But Google isn't search, is it? Search is one of Google's many products. Albeit, yes, it's his flagship product and the one that's most profitable for now, but it's also one that's already losing relevance and being threatened by new players in the industry. So, to the outside world, Google is effectively less than the sum of its parts. It has failed to build a brand DNA, a brand identity, right? To the outside world, no one knows what Google really stands for. And although Google's purpose of being helpful has served them really well to attract and retain talent, and it served them well to create a work culture, it's not doing them any good when it comes to winning market share, particularly when it comes to the devices and wearables industry, where they are trying to topple Apple. Google are trying to get a new generation of consumers to stop buying iPhones and buy the Google Pixel, right? And they're struggling. They're struggling, although the Google Pixel is a better product, a more customer-centric product, a more helpful product, designed by Google engineers who are driven by Google's purpose of being helpful. But still, there's something missing. What's missing is that a new generation of consumers, they don't buy product. They buy purpose, right? And being helpful is a utilitarian purpose. And people, and consumers in particular, we're not driven by utility. We're driven by values, right? So if you look at the Edelman Trust Barometer, if you look at Deloitte Digital's A New Measure of Trust, or Accenture's Trust Index, any good body of research into consumer habits, there is one word that keeps creeping in, and that's values. Edelman even says that the majority of people will now buy or advocate for brands based on the brand's values. Deloitte Digital goes one step further. It says that marketers like me, and probably some of you, need to stop segmenting people by demographics. We need to start segmenting people by human values, by shared human values, right? But even with all this body of research, why do still most companies' purpose? Why are they still deprived of any actual human values? And the answer is simple. It's because companies, most companies, especially most big companies, they suffer from a tremendous lack of self-awareness. They've become really good in the last few years at feeling the pulse of their workforce, right? At looking inwards. But they still remain slightly oblivious to how the world perceives them. So they build utilitarian purposes because it serves them internally. It serves them to drive product. It serves them to build culture. But what they do is they miss an important link. They miss an important link to a new generation of consumers. A new generation of consumers who, according to research done by the Pew Research Center, are now much less likely than our parents' generation to join a church or a Rotary Club or a charity or any social club or any club at all. Because let's face it, our parents' generation, they chose a place to work based on salary, right? Work for them was a way to get money. If they wanted a shared sense of purpose, or if they wanted a shared set of values, they would go outside work. They would join a church, they would join a club, right? But this new generation, if they want to act on their values, they do it through money. How they earn it and how they spend it. And that's why they will choose a place of work based on common set of values. And that's why they will choose to buy a product based on that company's values. Right? So if Google want Gen Z to buy the Google Pixel instead of the Apple iPhone, there's only one way of doing it. They cannot sell it as a phone. They cannot sell it as a commodity or a luxury product like Apple does, right? They need to sell it as a cause. They need to sell it as an ideal. They need to sell it as a common set of values. So let's just imagine a scenario for a second. Imagine that Google's purpose isn't being helpful. Imagine that Google's purpose, Google's ethos, is to be good. And that isn't as far-fetched as you may think. If you look back at the company's history, back to its IPO in 2004, written by the founders, it states, "Don't be evil," right? Which was revolutionary way back when, 2004, right? Capitalism 1.0, where a company's purpose was to deliver value, aka profit, to shareholders. Google's founders wrote an IPO that stated, "Don't be evil," a values-driven IPO. And that was revolutionary, and that actually paved the way for Google to become the company that it is now. But it's a different world out there today. And I'm afraid not being evil just won't cut it. If companies want to win the heart and soul of a next generation of consumers, companies need to be a force for good. Not just Google, but any company. According to Edelman, companies are now expected, companies and business leaders are now expected to compensate for the shortcomings of governments and the media. They are now more trusted than governments and the media. They're even more trusted than NGOs. Oh, sorry. So imagine this. If a Gen Z consumer is looking at a phone from a company that does everything in its power to be good, to contribute positively to society and to the planet, or a phone sold by a company that they know traps consumers behind, a walled garden of products, well, then Google takes a bite out of Apple. Sorry, that was a good punchline. I jumped a slide. And this really doesn't just apply to Google at all. It applies to every single industry and every single company out there. Let's look at another industry that's being disrupted. Banking, right? Here in the UK, you've got 4 main banks. You've got HSBC, Barclays, RBS, and Lloyds, right? The big 4. Then you have a couple of other big ones, Standard Chartered, NatWest, and you have the disruptors. Among them, the UK's most valuable fintech, Revolut. Revolut, which, according to the latest data by Bloomberg, is already taking top talent from the UK's big four banks, including HSBC. Revolut and other fintechs are disrupting and stealing a slice of the talent pie. Why? Let's look at HSBC's purpose for a second. According to their website, and I quote, HSBC's purpose is to open up a world of opportunity. What does that mean? I mean, what human values does this evoke? Then you look at Revolut. And they have their mission statement, which states they want to unlock the power of a borderless economy for everyone. Borderless for everyone. Words matter, right? Us as communicators and marketers, or some of you as communicators and marketers, need to understand that. Words carry values with them. In this case, inclusivity, diversity, openness, possibility, right? It even speaks to the nomadic lifestyle of Gen Z, borderless. So if a Gen Z consumer is faced with the option of opening an account with HSBC, the soulless corporate giant, or Revolut, the inclusive, diverse, open, values-driven company, who do you think will win their heart and soul? So this is what I'm here to tell you. If you're a marketer in any company, you're either a disruptor or you're probably being disrupted. And if you're being disrupted, chances are you're already losing relevance, even if your company hasn't quite realized it yet. So what I'm here to say is this. Us as marketers, we need to rethink our role in a company. We need to rethink how we bring actual value to the company we're in. And we're spending, as marketers, too much time chasing MQLs, right? Delivering lead generation to sales. We are wasting too much time reporting on vanity metrics on social media, focusing on quick wins. All the while, our brand is out there losing relevance. We are doing very little to fight for brand equity with a new generation of consumers with different values. So if you want to be the architects of your brand, if you want to be the stewards of your company's brand, then you need to rethink. You need to look at your purpose and check whether it aligns with the values of a future generation. Speak to their values, and profit will follow. Thank you.